You know Sweet Caroline? But what if I told you the man behind it now lives in near silence, after decades of thunderous applause? Neil Diamond lit up stadiums, broke records, and loved harder than most stars ever dared. But how did it all end like this? From million-dollar deals to a diagnosis that changed everything, this is the side of Neil Diamond you were never meant to see. Stay with me, because what you'll discover next will change how you hear his music forever. Neil Diamond's story is one of those rare journeys that reminds us how fragile fame really is. Once a music legend who sold over 125 million albums worldwide, today he faces a quiet reality far from the stage lights and roaring crowds. At 77, after a devastating health diagnosis that shook him to his core, Neil canceled everything without warning. For 2 years, he hid the truth even from himself, refusing to admit the toll his illness had taken. Now, the man behind the timeless anthem Sweet Caroline spends his days alone in his studio, a far cry from the electrifying glory of his past. The stark contrast between who he was and who he is now is both haunting and deeply human. Born on January 24, 1941 in Brooklyn, New York, Neil's beginnings were far from glamorous. His parents, Rose and Akiba Kiev Diamond, were immigrants who fled the hardships of Russia and Poland, seeking a new life in America. Brooklyn was a tough place during the war years, with uncertainty lingering in every corner. His father, a dry goods merchant, worked tirelessly to provide for the family. Their constant moves across Brooklyn carried the weight of their immigrant heritage and the traditions of their Jewish roots. Neil's childhood was steeped in the grit and resilience of working-class life, and that struggle would later echo in the emotional core of his music. During the war, the Diamonds relocated to Cheyenne, Wyoming, while his father served in the Army. For a Brooklyn kid, the vast openness of Wyoming was like stepping into a different world. It was there, in darkened movie theaters, that Neil fell under the spell of singing cowboys and storytelling through song. The endless skies and rugged heroes left an indelible mark on his young imagination, planting the seeds for his future as a songwriter who could capture feelings with melodies. When the war ended, the family returned to Brooklyn, settling in Brighton Beach. Though back in the city's crowded streets, Neil carried the wild spirit of the West deep inside him. As a teenager, Neil found a passion that would redefine his entire life: writing songs. At just 15, he penned his first tune, "Hear Them Bells," inspired by a girl he admired. But this was more than a fleeting crush. It opened a door into a whole new world of creativity. That same summer, at a Jewish summer camp upstate, Neil witnessed Pete Seeger perform. Watching Seeger transform simple lyrics and melodies into something powerful struck Neil like a thunderbolt. Returning home, he begged for a guitar, and soon his fingers were awkwardly learning chords, while his mind raced with unwritten songs. His 16th birthday brought a modest $9 acoustic guitar, but for Neil, it was priceless. The first step toward an extraordinary destiny. School began to fade into the background as his days filled with writing music, scribbling lyrics in notebooks, and dreaming beyond the classroom walls. That guitar became an extension of himself, a signal that the usual path wasn't meant for him. At Erasmus Hall High School, he sang in the chorus with a girl named Barbara Streisand, two unknown kids, both holding sparks the world hadn't noticed yet. Later, Neil transferred to Abraham Lincoln High School, where he picked up fencing and befriended Herb Cohen, an Olympic-caliber fencer. It was an unusual combination, music and fencing, but both taught him discipline, focus, and the belief that he was destined for more than Brooklyn's limits. In 1958, Neil earned a fencing scholarship to New York University, initially aiming for a career in medicine, chasing the American dream his parents dreamed for him. Yet, even as he sat through biology lectures, his thoughts were hijacked by melodies and lyrics. By his second year, Skipping classes to sneak into Tin Pan Alley, Neil was chasing songwriting dreams rather than textbooks. His grades suffered, but his determination grew stronger. The defining moment came in 1961 when, just 10 credits short of graduating, Neil landed a modest songwriting contract worth $50 a week. It was a small sum, but enough to push him toward the biggest leap of his life. He dropped out, leaving behind a steady future for a risky pursuit that left his family devastated, especially his father, who struggled to understand the choice. The music business proved to be unforgiving. At Sunbeam Music Publishing, Neil was confined to a tiny room, forced to crank out catchy tunes for unknown artists. Whenever he tried to pour his heart into his work, it was rejected for being too complicated. Day by day, his spirit felt crushed. But when Sunbeam let him go, something unexpected happened. Neil felt a surge of freedom. He realized that if he was going to succeed, he had to carve his own path on his own terms. His early career was a roller coaster of hope and hardship. In 1962, he formed a duo with Jack Packer, releasing a few songs as Neil and Jack, but none gained traction. Later that year, a solo deal with Columbia Records felt like a breakthrough. In July 1963, he released Clowntown with At Night on the Other Side. The critics liked it, but the public didn't respond. Sales were dismal, and Columbia dropped him almost immediately. This marked the beginning of his most challenging years. Penniless and scraping by, some days Neil had only 35 cents to buy food. He composed songs wherever he could, on buses, in empty rooms, even on a battered piano above Birdland, a New York club. It was a lonely, painful chapter, but through that struggle something raw and genuine started to emerge in his music. The hits, Cherry Cherry and Solitary Man, were born from this period of quiet desperation. In November 1965, the tides finally began to turn. Jay and the Americans recorded his song Sunday and Me, which climbed to number 18 on the Billboard charts and lingered there for weeks, even becoming a hit in Canada. This modest success was a lifeline, proving Neil wasn't just another lost songwriter. His music had heart and hooks that wouldn't let go. Doors that had long been closed began to creak open. Soon, he met Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich, established hitmakers who loved Neil's demos and helped secure him a new publishing deal. But luck was fleeting. Neil was fired again, something he later joked was a rite of passage for aspiring songwriters. Despite the setbacks, he pushed on. Jeff and Ellie introduced Neil to Burt Burns at Bang Records, who recognized his potential and signed him. For the first time, Neil had a team that believed in his vision, granting him the freedom to create the deeply emotional songs that had been simmering inside him. Then came the defining moment of his career. In 1966, Don Kirshner, a powerful music publisher, summoned Neil. Kirshner needed a hit for a new band called the Monkees. Neil played I'm a Believer, a song he'd written for himself, and Kirshner knew it was a guaranteed success. The Monkees recorded it, and when it was released, the song exploded like a bombshell, selling over 1 million copies before it even hit the shelves. It soared to number 1 and stayed there for 7 weeks, becoming the biggest song of 1967. Suddenly, Neil Diamond was no longer a struggling writer. He was the man behind America's biggest hit. He wasn't just writing songs for others anymore. Neil Diamond was crafting his own path with quiet determination. While penning hits like A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, and Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow for the Monkees, his name was steadily climbing the ladder of success. But beneath all the excitement, Neil never lost sight of the dreams he held close to his heart. Early in 1966, he stepped into the spotlight with Solitary Man. It wasn't an instant chart topper, but it was a powerful statement, a glimpse into his soul. The song captured the ache of loneliness and the search for love, emotions Neil knew all too well from his early struggles. Unintentionally, It became a mirror reflecting his own life's raw edges, honest and unforgettable. Just months later, he followed up with Cherry Cherry, a tune that truly ignited his solo career, soaring to number 6 on the charts. Suddenly, Neil Diamond was no longer just the man behind the scenes. He was becoming a star in his own right. To capitalize on this momentum, his debut album, The Feel of Neil Diamond, hit the shelves. Though hurriedly assembled to ride the wave of success, it revealed the artist's undeniable authenticity. Songs full of heart, catchy hooks, and a personal touch that would come to define his entire career. Then came 1969, a year that would mark a turning point. Millions of Americans saw Neil for the first time on The Ed Sullivan Show, seated simply on a stool, pouring his soul into Sweet Caroline. It was a performance stripped down to its core, just his voice and the story behind the song, drawing the audience into an intimate world of hope and reflection. When he returned for a second performance, the stage was transformed. A vibrant, rainbow-hued pyramid surrounded by dancing flower children, capturing the spirit of a wild and colorful era. Holly Holy wasn't as big a hit as Sweet Caroline, but it held its own, echoing the boldness of the late 60s. Despite the impact, Neil's Sullivan appearances were limited, possibly because the show was nearing its final curtain. What made Sweet Caroline even more fascinating was the story behind its creation, one Neil kept private for almost 4 decades. It wasn't until 2007 that he shared the inspiration. A photograph of young Caroline Kennedy, poised in her riding outfit next to her pony, sparked a flicker of hope in a struggling, unknown songwriter. That simple image planted a seed of inspiration that blossomed into a song written in less than an hour in a Memphis hotel room. Sharing this story years later at Caroline's 50th birthday made the song's meaning even richer. Over time, Sweet Caroline found a second life as an anthem at Boston Red Sox games, uniting generations through its timeless melody. Neil often marveled at how the song continued to resonate, crossing decades and crowds. By 1968, Neil had signed with Uni Records, a move that changed the trajectory of his career. At Columbia, his earlier work had received praise but failed to sell in large numbers. Uni offered him creative freedom and strong support, and the results spoke for themselves. His first gold records appeared, and the industry began to see him not just as a gifted songwriter, but as a commanding performer. This was also the period when he lent a hand to another rising star, introducing a young British talent named Elton John to American audiences for the first time. As Neil's songwriting deepened in emotion and complexity, his live shows grew into grand spectacles, showcasing the power he wielded on stage. 1970 brought his first #1 hit with Cracklin' Rosie, a triumph that rewarded years of grinding it out in empty rooms and on endless bus rides. The song combined a memorable melody, heartfelt lyrics, and an irresistible sound, a breakthrough that left no doubt. Neil Diamond had become a true star. His success only escalated from there. Song Sung Blue topped charts in 1972, capturing the simple yet profound style Neil had honed. That summer, he recorded Hot August Night during a 10-night sold-out run at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. This double live album immortalized a peak moment: electric energy, deep emotion, and a connection with the crowd that felt almost sacred. Hot August Night wasn't just a concert recording. It was the night Neil Diamond became a legend, a moment he revisited with sequels years later, though none quite matched that original magic. Later that year, Neil took a bold leap, becoming the first major pop-rock star since Al Jolson to headline Broadway's Winter Garden Theater. For 20 consecutive nights, he sold out the house, drawing a diverse audience, from young couples to longtime fans to unexpected hipsters who secretly adored his music. It was a gamble that paid off, proving Neil's magnetic appeal could transcend any stage or crowd. At the height of his fame, Neil surprised everyone by stepping back from touring for over 3 years. While many artists feared fading into obscurity, he chose to focus on family, songwriting, and personal renewal. When he returned in late 1976, some doubted whether the world still remembered him, but those doubts were quickly dispelled. His comeback tour shattered attendance records across North America, Australia, and Europe, pulling in over $5 million, an enormous sum for the time. His performances had grown even bigger, his songs deeper, and his bond with audiences more powerful than ever. In 1973, Neil shook the music world again by signing a $5 million deal with Columbia Records for 5 albums. A staggering amount then. Empowered by this freedom, he took a daring creative turn, composing the soundtrack for Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, a philosophical film about a seagull's quest to soar beyond limits. Though the movie itself flopped, Neil's rich emotional score soared, earning millions, a Grammy, and even a Golden Globe. Yet behind the scenes, conflict brewed. Neil clashed with the director over edits made without his consent, vowing never to work on a film again without full control, a promise he kept until 1980. That year, Neil took an unexpected step into acting, starring in The Jazz Singer, a modern remake of a classic film. Without any prior experience, he commanded an unprecedented $3.5 million, making him the highest-paid first-time actor at the time. Playing Yusul Rabinovich, a Jewish cantor chasing a pop star dream, Neil held his own alongside legends like Sir Laurence Olivier and Lucy Arnaz. The film was a financial success, but critics were less kind about Neil's acting. Still, the soundtrack soared, delivering timeless songs like Love on the Rocks, Hello Again, and America. One scene stirred debate, a modern nod to the original film's controversial history. But Neil decided acting wasn't his future. He returned to what he knew best, music. Aside from cameo appearances as himself, he left acting behind, choosing the stage and studio over film sets. America, one of the soundtrack's biggest hits, carried deep personal meaning. Inspired by his grandparents' immigrant journey from Russia and Poland to Brooklyn, Neil wrote it straight from the heart. "It's my gift to them," he said. The song blended hope with a quiet sadness and struck a chord, reaching number 8 on the Billboard charts and becoming part of America's cultural fabric for years to come. Neil Diamond's story is a reminder that behind every hit, every bright stage light, there's a journey filled with struggle, heartache, and triumph. His music not only shaped a generation but continues to inspire new ones, proving that some songs are truly timeless. Later in 1969, Neil married Marcia Murphy, a TV production assistant. Rumors whispered that their relationship had begun before his first marriage ended. Together, they had 2 sons, Jesse and Micah. For a time, it seemed like Neil had found a stable home amid the chaos. Yet the relentless grind of touring and late nights took its toll, and after 25 years, they parted ways in 1995. The media frenzy focused on the settlement, reports claiming Marcia walked away with $150 million, roughly half of Neil's fortune. Neil later called the figure exaggerated but never disputed the fact she was well taken care of. "She was worth every penny," he admitted. Instead of therapy, Neil turned inward, channeling his pain into music with the album Tennessee Moon, a raw healing balm. Then came a quiet chapter. In 1996, during a tour in Australia, Neil met Ray Farley. Their connection was deep and steady, lasting 12 years. Ray even took over managing Neil's merchandising business. His real estate portfolio included elegant homes in Los Angeles and Malibu, alongside stakes in music publishing and merchandising businesses. Private jets ensured he could tour and manage affairs efficiently. Neil's insurance policies were comprehensive, covering health challenges and protecting his valuable assets, reflecting careful foresight. His wealth-building strategy combined relentless creativity with smart investments, teaching us the value of adaptability, resilience, and managing fortune with prudence. From the hopeful waiter in the Catskills to a music legend facing his greatest challenges with quiet strength, Neil Diamond's journey reminds us how deeply art can connect with the human spirit. Even as he stepped away from the stage, his music kept speaking for millions, echoing through time with a promise. This ride, indeed, has been so good, so good, so good. If you felt that journey, hit like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of legendary lives.